The checkered flag is out. Order beginning to change. Bourdais now goes to the top. Canaan, Pagenaud, Munoz, Power, and Jakes. James Hinchcliffe has his hands full. The car looks to push at low speed and then very twitchy, nervous at the higher speeds. Montoya out of the top 6th and 8th right now and off the racetrack.
And he'd already passed the timing line, I believe, so
it didn't do him any good.
No, because now you're going to lose your fastest if it does cause a red, but checker's out, so you're not going to have a red flag. But that's interesting. That should have been the
horrible session for Castroneves as well. Way down, he's look at Durcone. He's pretty close to him in terms of time, which is a big surprise.
So struggles for Castroneves and Montoya in the
but look, guys, he hasn't finished a lap. He's the last one to hustle it, and right there he was 0.4 up, but he slid wide, and you don't want to get on that exit curve here in the wet, so he's going to lose a lot of time there. This is going to be close for Castroneves to transfer.
Still has some in hand. He's got to get through this fast right-left combination onto this back straightaway.
Oh, and he lost it. That was a huge mistake.
And then a big push.
And he's trying to get it back there, but that's not going to happen.
No. All right there. It shows you just how quickly it could go away. He lost 1.2 seconds with just that slide. James Jakes, for the moment, stays safe in 6th. I don't know if any other drivers have not crossed that line yet. But Bourdais quick, Canaan, Pagenaud, who's in the pit lane, Carlos Munoz, Will Power, James Jakes. And very clean as far as the session went, and hopefully for Sebastian Bourdais, the officials will rule that he did not interfere with Tony Kanaan. Obviously, he had a time that would put him 3rd. He had one that would put him on the pole. I don't know what the 3rd fastest lap would be if the officials deemed that they were going to take 2 away. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can call that. He went into the runoff, but I don't really feel he impeded Tony Kanaan when he came out of the runoff.
Well, plus, how are you going to see in the rain? I mean, what's the expectation? Has to adjust. If you do go off, get back on the track, the spray coming out the cars, you can't see anything in the rearview mirror. So there certainly wasn't anything intentional there.
As you see Castroneves shaking his head, probably dumbfounded as to how he could be as far back.
Yeah, 2.2 seconds. That's a mile.
Group 1 is in the books. Bourdais, Canaan, Pagenaud, Munoz, Power, and Jakes. They will move on. Who will move on from Group 2? We'll find out. Group 1 is finished. Group 2 getting ready to go out for round 1 qualifying, and some surprises, I should say, in Group 1. For one of those surprises, we'll go to Marty.
And that would be certainly Helio Castroneves. And I don't know that I've ever seen you more frustrated throughout an entire race weekend. It's been brake problems. It's been setup issues. It's been a little bit of everything. What happened this time in qualifying?
Yeah, now it was wet. So we're having issues in the dry and in the wet, but the team doing a phenomenal job. Hitachi car is actually consistent, but unfortunately consistent in the back. The good news is sounds like it's going to be wet, and we have some stuff that we could have done it. It was, for me, it was a little bit tough. I couldn't see very well. I was actually following Juan Pablo until he actually spun out. I'm like, oh man, you're my reference. But it is just one of those things. At least I think we got 2 other guys, our boys, in the hunt. But I guess Roger gotta throw a very good strategy on Sunday and see what happens.
Can you win from back there is the biggest question, wherever it'll be starting, Helio?
You can win from anywhere. The team that I have and obviously spirit that everyone has, and we know what we're capable. We can win from any place in this race.
Been a frustrating weekend for Helio Castroneves, but the spirit's still high, Kevin.
I'll take it, Marty. I've got the track owner, Laney Schwest, standing by with me, and certainly not letting the rain put a damper on things here at NOLA Motorsports Park. What do you think of the event so far? Mother Nature, in spite of her.
Kelly, we're having a great time. We just saw an incredible display of driver skill and Firestone tire power on our wet track. Very impressive. I wish I could run around in my cars that fast in the dry. Very impressive.
An inaugural event. It must have taken so much to put this thing together. What was it like on your end?
It's been 3 years. It started at our Jazz Fest, and of course our Jazz Fest is in a couple of weeks, so that's how we do business and time things with our fairs and festivals and our fun. It's been fascinating. It's been interesting. It is a fantastic thing to see our city's 10th year after the hurricane, our 10th year post-Katrina recovery. Here we are with this glorious event. We're looking forward to our rain or shine, running at 2:30 something tomorrow. This is quite exciting on the wet track. But we're thinking that we're going to have good weather, and we're ready for a whole ball of excitement tomorrow.
And Group 2 is getting ready to get out and qualify. Thank you, Laney.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, you heard Helio Castroneves say you can win from anywhere. Somebody's going to need to tell Sebastian Bourdais that, because Bourdais is going to be very unhappy. We talked about the fact that he was being investigated for potentially blocking Tony Kanaan when he comes back on track. Here's the move. So Bourdais in the green car, Kanaan coming out.
Okay, so he's on the inside of the track there.
Pretty tough
He goes
call.
by, and not only was he investigated, but he was found guilty. His time has been taken away. Has been moved to the back. That moves James Hinchcliffe into the top 6.
Well, here's the
Bourdais
thing
out.
is that Hinchcliffe was in front of Kanaan coming down the straightaway. So when Bourdais went to pull out, he would have saw Hinch, he would have seen Hinch, and then he would have seen a huge spray
If I'm Bourdais,
behind him.
I'm absolutely pissed because I just don't feel that that's a justified call. You know,
Had him shaking his head.
Yeah, I totally agree, Paul. There's nothing intentional about that. The guy's trying to safely re-enter the course.
Nothing malicious about it. He's just the spray coming off of Hinch's car. He wouldn't even have seen Kanaan's car coming. He pulled out, and I don't really think it held up Kanaan in any way.
Marty?
And guys, we're going to try to get a word with Sebastian Bourdais in just a moment, but I can tell you that Jimmy Vasser sprinted from his pit box all the way to where the IndyCar officials is. He is currently in a conversation with those IndyCar officials. They are very upset, to Paul's point.
Well, they clearly told him, don't get out of the car.
Yep.
This isn't done yet, so...
When was the last time you seen Jimmy sprint anywhere?
Well, probably about the same time we saw you sprint somewhere.
Sometimes they
the
allow...
last time him and I went for a run was probably a long time ago.
And he was probably running after you then.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a legitimate argument. I would go and argue that as hard as I possibly could to get him into the... Because he's a guy that could get on the pole today.
Well, I thought that we'd see a replay that definitively showed an intent to hold a guy up, and I don't believe we saw any evidence of that.
Jimmy Vasser will continue to argue his point, and while he does just that, Group 2 out on the racetrack. Remember, same as we saw with Group 1, 12 drivers on track right now. They'll take the top 6 and move them forward to round 2. Here are the drivers in Group 2. Pretty good talent there. Scott Dixon, quick here all weekend.
Yeah, and again, these kind of conditions, we could see some surprises. You know, guys like Coletti, Gabby Chavez, you know, at the back of the field in points and, you know, wanting a good start here at NOLA. Anything can happen in these conditions.
You know, as we see the cars run around turn 1 here, those tracks that were getting grooved in as the cars ran are gone. And now these guys have got to do it all over again. So the longer they stay on track, don't make any mistakes. It's going to get quicker and quicker as the session goes on.
And one of the things we talked about was the challenge of visibility. But the counterpoint to that is the reference of having a car right there in front of you, which Castroneves spoke to with respect to Montoya in front of him. And here we see the same with Hunter Ray. And I think you can make the same argument about those tracks, the path that's created in the wet water. Well, it's going to fill back in eventually. It fills back in pretty quick. So if you stay right behind a car like Hunter Ray's trying here, it could be an advantage.
You can get there before it has a chance to fill back in. Hunter Ray following Takuma Sato in the number 14. ABC Supply Honda from AJ Foyt Racing. There's Hunter Ray. There's Sato.
Still hard to see. It'd be pretty tough for Hunter Ray to see where he's going. But, you know, being on this road course, it's much easier for that water to dissipate. And whereas you get on a street course, and you see Jimmy here, he looks absolutely upset.
I don't think he got the answer he wanted.
Marty?
Well, guys, let's talk to Jimmy, and I've never seen you sprint so fast in your life, Jimmy. Clearly, obviously disagree with the call, and then you went to talk to Tony Kanaan about the call as well. What did you say?
Well, I can only do handling signals, and I said, you know, he said, a little bit. But we let him go by. You know, of course, step went off and pulled back on the track, hard to see, and let Tony go by. We told him to let him go by on the radio, which he did. And, you know, then Tony had 2 more clear laps. Tony's still P2. We went to P1, clearly, you know, and we deserve to go through. I don't like the call. I don't understand it. You know, I'm imploring upon Tony to tell them, hey, yeah, he really didn't get my way. We got out of his way. And, I think if Tony and Ganassi are going to stick by that, it's chicken shit. That's what I think.
And they have told Sebastian Bourdais, sit in the car until we are done. Obviously, we apologize for that language, but sit in the car. We still think this is a winnable protest. So he is not giving up on this yet. And now they have just told Sebastian Bourdais, get out of the car. So obviously, now that is over. So Sebastian Bourdais out of his race car. Obviously, everyone here quite upset with the ruling.
Thanks, Marty.
And remember, the rulings are done through a committee, right? You've got a 3-person review, but I would hope we would see some evidence there, guys, that it was, clear intent. I didn't see that.
Clearly, it's a difficult call, but calling out officials, I've done 20 years of that, and it gets you nowhere. I know that 100%. So,
well, it's a thankless job, right?
Well, we see the red flags. A lot of lightning in the area, and this is going to be the reason for the red flag. Talked about Sebastian Bourdais. Let's talk about what's going on right now. That is a big-time lightning strike, and that's one of the reasons why we were red a little bit earlier. There's another look from Charlie Kimball's.
Hey, my mom always told me safest place in a lightning storm's in a car. Rubber between the road.
And that may be the case, but you got to have corner workers out there to take care of you. And
this certainly gives Jimmy some more time to argue his case.
Good point.
Joseph Newgarden, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Dixon Kimball, Marco Andretti. He could benefit from qualifying. Then Sage Karam as Jimmy Vasser and Sebastian Bourdais still discussing. You see the cut line. Now, it'll be interesting to see. Remember, we got through the first group, but we haven't even gotten through round 1 yet. So there is still time. If this qualifying were to be washed away, we would go back to the entrance point. So we are far from over here.
But we did achieve lap time, so we do have an established top 6 here. There was a couple laps put in. And
Marty.
Well, Sebastian now out of the car, had a chance to kind of calm down a little bit. First of all, do you feel like the move you made interfered with TK's lap?
What move are you talking about?
When you came back on the track. That's what they're calling it.
I mean, you can't see anything behind you. I just got off the track, turned the car around, rejoined the track the best I could, not to impede anyone who was coming towards me. Once I'm back on the track, I can't see anything out of the mirrors. There is spray everywhere. It's like, what do you want to do? I'm sorry. It's like the conditions are in such a way that you can't see anything. At the end of the day, if he doesn't make it, I understand. But he makes it. He's P2. No harm, no fall. It's just okay. There's nothing to say. They made the call. They're the governing body. I can't say anything. But as far as I'm concerned, they told me he was coming. Like, I look in the mirrors, I don't see anything. So where do I go from there?
Do you agree with Jimmy Vasser's assessment that you should go get Ganassi to kind of make the plea for you that it didn't interfere with their lap?
Listen, I think it's just a question of common sense. What happened and what's the outcome? Did it change anything? That's it. And that's usually what they do. So, it is what it is. We'll just the Mystic car was really quick, and we topped the group. That's all I can say.
Will you go talk to TK real quick or not?
Well, what can TK do? He's not going to be against having an opponent removed from the equation. You always take that. It's racing, but it's just whatever race control decides to do. That they need to be okay with what they decide, and I don't know. It's not my call.
He's still very upset with the call, but the one thing he told me before he stepped down was, I know we had the best car in that session.
Well, and they did have a very good car.
Surprisingly calm. I would be losing my mind if it was me. But, Sebastian in his career has always been very good about how to play the game politically with the officials and kind of get things the way he wants. But it seems to me, Townsend, that he doesn't even want to engage in the conversation.
Well, they've made their call. Call's final. I'm sure they debated it. And so I think he's doing the right thing, which is, what can I do? I can't control that. Let me focus forward on tomorrow and see what's next. So, it's a tough situation. To his point, though,
on the other end,
I'm not sure we could have told him up here what he should have done differently.
Yeah. Difficult to say. There's Tony Kanaan. The car that was supposedly hindered or had his lap time potentially altered by Sebastian Bourdais, and Kanan out of his car waiting for round 2 if we get there. With lightning in the area again, once again, corner workers had to be removed from their stations and people brought in from the grandstands and such. So Kanan looking on, talking about maybe the strategies and what they'll do for the next bit of qualifying. They can make some aerodynamic changes to the car if there are any more to be made. I would assume that they had maxed out aerodynamic downforce.
I would assume
already.
Everybody is running everything they can put on the car. So
looking at a guy there that would transfer through if it ended now, he'd make it through to the next round. Sage Karam, who's been very quick, was P5 in the final practice, and such a bright young American talent. We hope to see him all season as Sebastian Bourdais just continues to commiserate with his team.
Clock running out at the top, and that means that Group 2 is done for round 1 qualifying. Hopefully the weather will clear up a bit, and we'll be back to more qualifying when we come back to NOLA. Certainly don't want to be one of them. I don't think you want to be Juan Pablo Montoya right now, our championship leader, the victory in St. Pete, and he did not advance. Now, for him, his fingers are probably crossed that maybe qualifying gets canceled and they go back to entrant points. And there's Tony Kanaan involved in the controversy with Sebastian Bourdais.
I don't think that they'll go to entrance points now that everybody in the field has established a time. If they don't get through to the next rounds, maybe they will just go off of the times that are established now and establish a grid. But as we have time to think about it, as we see Sebastian come out here, I mean, he comes out, tries to stay out of the line. One car goes by, he gets on track here, and like he said, you can't see the car that's behind you from the spray. Tony's makes a clean pass on him here in the brake zone. See, I mean, maybe he held him up a tenth or two, but at the end of the day, they still ended up 1-2 on the grid, so I don't know how that harmed Kanan's session.
Well, all smiles in Tony's camp right now. And there we see Jack Hawksworth. He still has his helmet on. He's currently last in Group 2 and really wants to get back out there.
All right, so even a little bit of thunder and lightning happening around here in the booth as well. If you were tuned in expecting to see NHL, well, that'll be coming to you on the other side of this break. We'll bring you updates as we can from here in New Orleans as Takuma Sato sits in his Honda waiting to qualify here at NOLA. We'll bring you the updates as we can. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Paul Page, and we are back live from NOLA Motorsports Park in New Orleans. And just a few seconds ago, the word came to us that qualifying is now officially canceled, and we have no idea beyond that what they plan to do, but none of it will happen today. So let me give you the schedule so that you can anticipate what may happen and when something might come up. We are next on the air, scheduled Eastern Time at noon tomorrow. That is scheduled for the IndyCar warm-up. We don't know. Maybe that changes. Maybe they actually run a qualifying, but that's pure supposition. We have no idea whatsoever. If you're in the New Orleans area, of course, we're talking Central Time, and therefore 11 o'clock in the morning. The race itself is scheduled Eastern Time for 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That's 2 o'clock here in the New Orleans area. And by then, I'm assuming they will have qualifying totally figured out, and we will have a race to run, and it will be a great opportunity for all of us to see the second race of this season. So the IndyCar warm-up final comes at 12 noon tomorrow, followed by the IndyCar race at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Paul Page, on behalf of all the gang here, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to go try and dry out now, and we look forward to seeing you for the Indy Grand Prix of Louisiana coverage with the warm-up first thing tomorrow morning. Thanks for joining us.